The shadows of the Ecker ships blanketed vast regions of the planet, painting the sky in somber metallic hues. Beneath these looming shadows, Earth seemed fragile, almost insignificant, against the immense technological power descending from above. The oppressive silence accompanying the invasion felt like the prelude to a devastating storm. The Ecker, an alien race known for their military precision and calculated coldness, had arrived. To them, Earth was just another target in a long list of worlds to subjugate. Their victory, they believed, would be swift and indisputable. But as their forces touched Earth's soil, the invaders encountered something their strategic calculations had not accounted for. Humans, despite facing an overwhelming force, stood firm. Keenox, the supreme commander of the Ecker forces, observed with his 4 sharp eyes what he assumed was insignificant resistance. Yet, there was something in the eyes of those soldiers that unsettled him. They showed no fear, no hesitation. Their primitive weapons were ready. Their bodies stood as a wall. Why weren't they fleeing? Why didn't they surrender, as so many species before them had? Keenox's logical mind searched for familiar patterns, but found none. Humans were technologically inferior, their forces disorganized, and yet they formed a barrier that seemed impenetrable. Not through physical strength, but through something invisible, something he couldn't comprehend. Is it courage? Is it desperation? The commander pondered as his troops advanced toward what they believed would be a certain victory. Yet, every step seemed to draw defiant gazes that silently declared, "You won't break us." For the human soldiers, the coming battle wasn't just for their lives, it was for the survival of their species. They were acutely aware of their disadvantages, but that didn't matter. The determination filling each human heart was fueled by generations of stories, of triumphs, of struggles against the impossible. There, on that makeshift defensive line, stood the last defenders of a planet that refused to be erased from the cosmos. Captain Mark Briggs, a leader hardened by countless battles, moved through the ranks, inspiring confidence in every soldier. "They have machines. We have soul," Briggs repeated like a mantra. His face was a mask of determination, his eyes shining with the belief that victory was possible, even at the highest cost. Beside him, soldiers of diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds found unexpected unity. At that moment, all differences vanished. The singular objective was to resist to the last breath, to the last shot. Keenox continued to observe the scene. In all his campaigns, he had never encountered such obstinate resistance. Entire civilizations had knelt before a single shot was fired. But humans were different. It was as though each one carried a secret, a mystery so profound that even his advanced intelligence couldn't unravel it. Keenox wondered if his technological superiority would be enough to break that invisible wall made of flesh, bone, and willpower. Above, the sky was divided between the darkness of alien ships and the hesitant glow of the sun, trying to pierce through clouds of smoke. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the beginning of something that would change its fate forever. In the human trenches, the sound of weapons being prepared and firm voices issuing orders contrasted with the tense silence of the Ecker army. It was the calm before the storm, and both sides knew chaos would soon engulf the battlefield. Across the universe, human colonies watched the invasion with fear and despair. To them, Earth was a symbol, the origin of everything. If it fell, what would that mean for the rest of humanity? In intercepted transmissions, images of soldiers building barricades and civilians evacuating cities were seen with a mixture of pride and sorrow. It was a battle that seemed lost before it even began. But those on the front lines didn't see it that way. For them, it was more than a battle, it was the affirmation of humanity. As the first Ecker units marched toward human positions, Keenox felt a twinge of doubt, something he had never experienced before. He studied reports and drone footage, but nothing explained humanity's resilience. His instincts told him something was wrong, but his logical mind dismissed those feelings. To him, this was just another mission. But deep down, he knew he was facing something he didn't fully understand. The introduction to this cosmic conflict was about to erupt into action. On one side, an overwhelming force with technology and numbers in its favor. On the other, a species that refused to surrender, even in the face of the impossible. Under a sky heavy with tension, Earth's fate would be decided. The Ecker invasion was not just a physical threat, it was a test of the human spirit. And soon, the entire universe would know whether that invisible flame, which Keenox had yet to name, could stand against the darkness. On the morning the battle began, the sky was tinged with ash, a grim prelude to the chaos ahead. The deafening roar of alien engines heralded the arrival of an overwhelming force, each mechanical pulse shaking the ground beneath the human trenches. The Ecker ships hovered above like omnipresent shadows, casting fear across Earth. Yet, despite this intimidating display, the human soldiers held their ground. In their eyes, there was no despair, only fierce determination. "Today, we will not retreat," thought Captain Briggs, adjusting his helmet as he strode along the defensive line. Briggs was the heart of the resistance. His clear, firm voice cut through the rising tension. "Hold the line," he commanded, moving among the soldiers to ensure everyone was ready for the inevitable clash. His robust figure and sharp gaze inspired confidence in his troops. At his side, Sergeant Morales, a seasoned veteran, assessed the makeshift defenses. The barricades, crafted from any available material, wreckage, abandoned vehicles, even parts of destroyed buildings, were far from perfect, but were all they had. "With what we have, we'll do the impossible," Morales remarked, adjusting his rifle. At the Ecker forward post, Keenox observed the scene with growing interest. Drone footage showed soldiers running back and forth, reinforcing positions and preparing rudimentary weapons. Initially, he found it pathetic. Yet, there was something about the way they moved that piqued his curiosity. There was no panic. They didn't behave like prey cornered, but rather like hunters waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This unpredictability disturbed Keenox deeply. To him, war was an exact science, but humans seemed to operate outside any logical framework. When the first shots were fired, the ground shook. The ectoplasma weapons tore through the air with surgical precision, leaving smoldering craters in the earth. Despite the intensity of the onslaught, the human soldiers stood firm. Jackson, a young recruit facing his first battle, trembled as he gripped his rifle. Beside him, Morales watched with firm but understanding eyes. "Stay focused, kid. Aim for the eyes and the joints," he said, pointing out the weak spots in the Ecker armor. Jackson took a deep breath, nodding as he squeezed the trigger for the first time. The humans' tactics began to confuse the Ecker forces. Despite their technological inferiority, the soldiers used the terrain to their advantage, moving swiftly between trenches and launching precise attacks at opportune moments. Keenox watched in disbelief as his units, accustomed to crushing resistance effortlessly, struggled against unexpected obstacles. "They move as if they know exactly where to strike," he murmured, analyzing the data on his holographic display. For the first time, he felt a shadow of doubt cloud his judgment. On the battlefield, Briggs led his men with the calm of a seasoned warrior. "Advance when I give the signal. Don't break formation," he ordered, his voice a beacon amidst the chaos. The soldiers followed without question, placing their trust entirely in their leader. Beside him, Morales made sarcastic remarks to ease the tension, something Briggs appreciated. "These aliens think they're invincible. Maybe we should show them that not all technology can beat human stubbornness," the sergeant quipped, eliciting nervous laughter from nearby troops. As the battle progressed, the human strategy became clearer. They weren't just holding the line, they were counterattacking in calculated bursts. Every move seemed designed to exploit weaknesses in the alien machines. Jackson, who had started the day afraid, now felt adrenaline coursing through his veins. He fired with precision, taking down one of the Ecker drones hovering above. "Nice shot, kid," Morales shouted, clapping the young soldier on the shoulder. Jackson felt a surge of confidence, even as he knew the fight was far from over. Keenox, meanwhile, began to feel the weight of the losses. Despite their numerical and technological superiority, The human resistance was dealing significant damage to his forces. He observed a fallen human soldier quickly replaced by another who took their place without hesitation. This obstinacy both intrigued and unsettled him. What drives them to keep fighting? They must know they have no chance, he thought as his subordinates awaited further orders. Deep down, Keenox began to realize he was facing something beyond his understanding. Briggs, however, refused to let exhaustion dampen his troops' morale. He moved like a storm, ensuring every soldier felt part of something greater. We're defending more than our lives. We're defending our humanity, he shouted, his voice echoing through the trenches. Each word served as a reminder to the soldiers that they were fighting for something far larger than themselves. Morales, standing beside him, shook his head with a tired smile. The man sure knows how to light a fire in people, he muttered to himself. The first phase of the confrontation ended with significant losses on both sides. The battlefield was scarred with craters, smoke, and blood. Though exhausted, the human forces held their ground. The Ecker, meanwhile, temporarily withdrew to regroup for a more devastating assault. For Keenox, however, the retreat wasn't purely strategic. It was also an opportunity to better understand the enemy he faced. He knew humans were unlike any species he had previously conquered. There was something about them that defied logic, something he needed to grasp before it was too late. As night descended over the battlefield, the human forces took a brief respite. Under the uncertain glow of the stars and the light of burning wreckage, Captain Briggs gathered his team to discuss the next phase of the conflict. If we stay on the defensive, they'll eventually crush us, he declared, outlining a plan on an improvised hologram built from reconnaissance data. At his side, Sergeant Morales nodded, his hardened face reflecting a fiery determination. We need to destabilize them, and that means taking the fight to them, Briggs added, scanning the tired but resolute faces of his soldiers. Morales was tasked with leading a nighttime incursion into the enemy camp. He handpicked a small team of soldiers he trusted, including the young Jackson, who was beginning to show promising skill under pressure. "Kid, you've got guts, and that counts for a lot," Morales said while adjusting his gear. Jackson swallowed hard, trying to hide his nerves. "Let's not sugarcoat it. This mission is dangerous, but it could turn the tide. If we plant these explosives in the right places, they'll feel the impact," Morales affirmed, his voice steady with conviction. With the plan set, the team advanced under the cover of darkness. Every step was calculated, and the silence amplified the pounding of their hearts. The shadows of wreckage and craters cast eerie shapes around them, but Morales kept the team focused. "Stay in formation. One mistake, and we're done," he whispered, pointing out the positions of Ecker sentinels patrolling the perimeter. Every movement was a delicate dance between precision and peril. Even the smallest sound could alert the enemy. As they approached the Ecker camp, the team had a clear view of the monumental challenge ahead. Towering surveillance systems pulsed with blue lights, scanning the terrain for intruders. Alien machines loomed, colossal and intimidating, making the human soldiers feel minuscule in comparison. Jackson felt the weight of the mission as he spotted one of the Ecker warriors patrolling nearby. Morales noticed his tension and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Trust your training. They've got size, but we've got brains," Morales said with a brief but comforting smile. The team dispersed across the camp, each with a clear objective. Explosives were carefully placed at strategic points: fuel depots, command centers, and heavy weaponry stations. As they worked, the silence was interrupted only by the distant hum of Ecker machinery. Morales meticulously monitored everyone's progress, his sharp eyes catching every detail. "Almost done," he whispered, but the sound of heavy footsteps in the distance froze the team in place. A patrol was approaching. Tension reached its peak as the glowing eyes of the Ecker patrol caught a faint reflection from one of the devices. Without hesitation, Morales signaled for the team to retreat. "Scatter. Find a safe exit," he ordered in a hushed but authoritative voice. The soldiers ran in different directions, using the shattered terrain as cover. Jackson, injured by shrapnel while trying to escape, was nearly left behind, but Morales turned back to help him. "You're not staying here, kid," Morales said, slinging Jackson's arm over his shoulder and dragging him forward. The explosions came minutes later. The night sky lit up with a sequence of detonations that shook the battlefield. Surveillance towers collapsed, and the Ecker war machines were engulfed in flames. From a safe distance, the team watched with a mix of relief and triumph. Morales, sweating and breathless, looked at Jackson, who leaned against a rock, wincing in pain. "You did good, kid. Tonight, you helped turn the tide," he said, smiling despite his exhaustion. Back at the human camp, the impact of the counterattack was met with cheers and relieved smiles. Soldiers who had been steeped in heavy silence now felt invigorated. Briggs approached Morales and his team, expressing his gratitude. "You pulled off the impossible. This strike gave us an advantage we couldn't afford to lose," he said, shaking Morales' hand firmly. Morales replied with characteristic humility, "There's still a lot to do, but at least now, they know we won't go down without a fight." As the team rested and tended to their injuries, Briggs began planning the next steps. He knew the Ecker would retaliate with overwhelming force after such a humiliation, but he also knew that human morale had been reignited. "We planted doubt in them, and that's more powerful than any weapon," he commented to Morales. Around them, soldiers recounted stories of the mission as if reaffirming what they had accomplished. The determination on their faces was palpable, and Briggs sensed the moment for a full-scale counteroffensive was drawing near. Night gave way to dawn, and the scars of the battle became clearer under the morning light. Yet, for the humans, the new day brought something beyond devastation. It brought hope. They knew they were far from winning the war, but they also knew they weren't defeated. Every man and woman in the camp now carried the certainty that their resistance mattered. The Ecker might have superior technology, but humans had something no invader could fully understand: the will to fight with heart. As the first rays of sunlight illuminated the devastated battlefield, the human camp buzzed with activity. Following the success of Morales' counterattack, the soldiers had renewed determination as they tended to the wounded and reinforced their defenses. Captain Briggs, his face marked by exhaustion, gathered his commanders to discuss the next move. "They'll come at us with everything, but we can't wait to be crushed," he declared, pointing to the holographic map showing the regrouping Ecker forces. "We need to seize the moment and strike while they're disorganized." The emerging strategy was bold but necessary. The plan called for a coordinated attack on multiple fronts, designed to confuse and fragment the Ecker forces. "Our survival depends on keeping them psychologically off balance," Briggs explained as Morales and the other commanders studied their positions. "We know they're powerful, but we're learning how to exploit their weaknesses. If we act quickly, we can force them to retreat." The room was tense, but the leaders nodded, aware this was their only real chance at victory. While Briggs coordinated the front lines, soldiers in the field prepared their weapons and adjusted their positions. Jackson, still recovering from his injury, refused to sit out. "I'm fit enough to fight," he insisted, staring at Morales with unwavering determination. The sergeant, impressed by the young soldier's grit, eventually relented. "Fine, but you're staying in the rear." "I don't need unnecessary heroes, just focused soldiers," Morales replied. Jackson smiled and nodded, adjusting his rifle with trembling but purposeful hands. The atmosphere was heavy but not hopeless. Veteran soldiers exchanged stories of past battles, while younger recruits absorbed their lessons and steeled their nerves. Morales walked through the improvised trenches, offering words of encouragement. "Today isn't just about surviving, it's about showing them we're not as fragile as they thought," he told a small group setting up explosives. His words, simple but loaded with meaning, spread among the soldiers, uniting them in a shared purpose. On the horizon, the Ecker war machines loomed like colossal shadows against the reddish sky. The dust stirred by their heavy movements signaled their forces were reorganizing for an all-out assault. Briggs, observing through electronic binoculars, analyzed every movement. "They're coming, but they don't know we're ready," he muttered before turning to his commanders. Everyone knows their role. Hold the lines and stick to the plan. Today, we show them what we're made of. The tension before the clash was almost tangible. Every soldier seemed to carry the weight of Earth's fate on their shoulders, but their eyes burned with determination. The silence preceding the attack was broken only by the subtle adjustments of weapons and the murmur of commands being relayed. Morales stopped beside Briggs, exchanging a glance that spoke more than words. "We're ready," Morales affirmed, while Briggs nodded, his hand steady on the holster of his pistol. When the moment came, the attack erupted with explosive force. Human weapons, though technologically inferior, proved devastating in the hands of strategically positioned soldiers. Trenches burst into fire and smoke as precise shots targeted the joints and weak points of the Ecker machines. "Focus on the weak spots," Briggs shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Jackson, stationed at the rear, fired with surprising accuracy, each shot striking with deadly precision. The Ecker, confused by the coordinated offensive, faltered in their formations. Though their superior technology initially gave them an edge, human unpredictability once again destabilized them. A group of soldiers led by Morales advanced on the enemy's flank, using the shattered terrain for cover as they cleared a path for the main line. "Flank them! Don't let them regroup!" Morales ordered, his team executing the maneuver with precision and bravery. As the battle intensified, Briggs realized the outcome wouldn't be determined by brute strength alone, but by the emotional resilience of his soldiers. "They're not ready for what we can do," he said to himself, watching the Ecker forces retreat slightly in the face of humanity's unexpected ferocity. The explosions continued to shake the field, but there was a strange calm in Briggs' mind. He knew this was the moment when the tide would begin to turn. By day's end, as the sun set over a sky painted red and gray, the humans still held their positions. Despite the losses, the collective will driving them remained unshaken. Briggs looked around, seeing his soldiers, exhausted yet determined. They may have their machines and technology, but we have something they'll never understand. A reason to fight, he thought. And with that, he knew the battle was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next. As the battle raged on, Commander Keenox unveiled his ultimate weapon. The elite unit known as the Iron Fist, these towering warriors, nearly legendary among the Ecker, were renowned for their immense strength and nearly impenetrable armor, designed to intimidate and crush any opposition. From a distance, their footsteps thundered across the battlefield, bringing an eerie silence to the human lines. Every soldier felt the psychological weight of this impending threat, but fear quickly gave way to a quiet determination. Captain Briggs watched the colossal figures advance. "These aren't like the others," he murmured to Morales, who was already preparing to devise a strategy. Briggs raised his voice, addressing his men. "They want us to fall back, but we'll show them that no matter how big or strong they are, we can bring them down." His words, brimming with conviction, rekindled the courage of his soldiers, who adjusted their weapons and took their positions, ready to face the overwhelming force. The Iron Fist warriors began their march, their steps making the ground tremble as they advanced in formation. Each of these giants was a walking fortress, encased in reinforced metal plating and equipped with weapons capable of devastating an entire trench in a single strike. But Briggs knew there was no room for despair. Calling Morales over, he quickly formulated a plan. "They may seem invincible, but every machine has its weaknesses. We need to target the joints. Take them down one at a time." Morales assembled a team of experienced soldiers to flank the Iron Fist unit. Among them was Jackson, who, despite still being injured, insisted on joining. "Are you sure?" Morales asked. "I can handle it, Sergeant," Jackson replied firmly. Morales nodded, assigning the young soldier to the group's rear. "Stay sharp. We need precision, not heroics," he warned. The team moved carefully, using the ruins and terrain to their advantage, ensuring they remained undetected. The confrontation was brutal from the outset. The Iron Fist warriors advanced like tanks, smashing through barriers and deflecting gunfire as though it were little more than an annoyance. Human soldiers, however, refused to relent. Following Briggs' orders, they began focusing their attacks on the joints and other weak points, using every bullet and rocket with surgical precision. "Stay focused. They're not invincible," Briggs shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos as he coordinated efforts to destabilize the alien colossi. Morales and his team positioned themselves on the right flank of the Iron Fist, using the battlefield's chaos as cover. With quick hand signals, Morales directed his men to aim for the giant's leg joints. The first coordinated strike had immediate results. One of the Iron Fist warriors staggered, struggling to regain balance before collapsing to its knees after a second, well-placed volley. The fall of the Colossus sent a wave of cheers through the human lines. Seeing the opening created by Morales' team, Briggs ordered other units to press forward. "They may be big, but they're not immortal. Push them back," he commanded, rallying his troops to intensify their attacks. Jackson, inspired by the sight of the fallen giant, fired with newfound confidence, each shot landing with deadly accuracy. "This is for what they've done to us," he yelled, his voice echoing through the battlefield. The Iron Fist warriors, however, did not retreat easily. In response, they intensified their attacks, unleashing devastating blows that leveled trenches and fired energy blasts that erupted in fiery bursts. Each movement of these alien giants was a crushing threat, but the humans, galvanized by Briggs' leadership, held their ground. Morales, leading his team with precision, managed to take down another Iron Fist using explosives placed at a critical moment. "That's 2 down. Let's keep going," he urged. As the remaining giants began to falter, the psychological impact of their defeat rippled through the Ecker ranks. From his forward command post, Keenox watched in disbelief. His elite warriors, designed to be the unstoppable force of his campaign, were being outmatched by humans. "They're more resourceful than we anticipated," he murmured, struggling to devise a plan to regain control of the battlefield. Finally, with the fall of the last Iron Fist warrior, the tide of the battle seemed to shift decisively. The exhausted but unyielding human soldiers began pushing the remnants of the Ecker forces back. Seeing the opportunity, Briggs gave the final order: "Advance! Don't let them regroup." And with that, the humans once again proved that courage, strategy, and resilience could triumph over even the most formidable threats. The battlefield, now a wasteland of smoke and devastation, simmered with almost tangible tension. After the fall of the Iron Fist warriors, the morale of the Ecker troops began to falter. Keenox, the imposing alien commander, realized he could no longer remain a mere strategist. His presence on the front lines was now essential to turning the tide of battle. As his forces regrouped, his 4 eyes locked onto Captain Briggs, the human leader whose unyielding defiance had transformed a seemingly fragile resistance into an unstoppable force. Briggs felt the weight of Keenox's gaze. He knew a direct confrontation was inevitable and that defeating the alien commander could irreparably break the enemy's will. Gathering his best soldiers, including Morales and Jackson, Briggs quickly outlined a plan. "If we take down Keenox, the rest of their forces will collapse," he said, his voice laced with cold determination. "But we have to be ready for anything. He's unlike anything we've faced before." Keenox descended from his command platform, his gleaming armor standing out against the backdrop of fire and smoke. Each step he took was a reminder of alien might, a declaration that he was willing to dirty his hands to protect his supremacy. Wielding an energy blade that hummed menacingly as it cut through the air, Keenox's voice boomed across the field. "Humans, your stubbornness is remarkable. But today, you will witness the true power of the Ecker." Captain Briggs advanced with his team, his steps resolute. Every move mattered now. "Keep him busy. He'll come straight for me. Use that to expose his weaknesses," he instructed, his voice steady despite the mounting tension. Morales nodded, leading the others in a strategic encirclement. Jackson, gripping his weapon tightly, understood the gravity of this moment. He exchanged a glance with Morales, who said, "Stay focused, kid. This is where we show them who we are." The clash began with an eruption of raw power. Keenox unleashed devastating strikes, each swing of his energy blade sending waves of force that scattered the humans. Yet, Briggs remained agile, dodging and countering with precise movements. He quickly noticed that, despite Keenox's strength, the alien underestimated the human's speed and resilience. He relies too much on brute force, Briggs thought as he adjusted his positioning to exploit the gaps in Keenox's movements. Morales and his team seized every opportunity to exploit the vulnerabilities in Keenox's armor. They targeted the joints and less protected areas, forcing the alien commander to split his focus. He's starting to feel it, Morales shouted as he fired at Keenox's leg, causing him to stagger slightly. Jackson, fueled by adrenaline, found a strategic vantage point and unleashed several well-aimed shots at the same joint. "Don't let up," he yelled, his voice ringing through the chaos. Frustrated by the human's resilience, Keenox escalated his attacks. In a swift motion, he struck Briggs, grazing him and sending him to the ground. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Keenox approached, raising his blade for a final blow. But just as the strike came down, Briggs rolled aside and countered with a precise attack to an exposed area in Keenox's armor. The alien commander recoiled in pain, giving the humans a critical opening to redouble their efforts. "We don't go down that easily," Briggs muttered as he got back to his feet, blood streaming from a wound on his forehead. His team quickly rallied around him, shielding him as he caught his breath. "Let's end this together," Morales said, placing a steadying hand on the captain's shoulder. Briggs nodded and shouted, "All in, he's losing ground. Let's take him down for good." With a unified battle cry, the humans surged forward, every shot aimed at the critical points in Keenox's armor. The decisive moment came when Briggs, with a burst of strength and agility, closed the distance to Keenox and drove his combat knife into the joint at the alien's shoulder. Keenox's armor buckled, and the mighty commander fell to his knees, his breathing ragged and his expression a mix of pain and disbelief. "You humans are more persistent than I ever imagined," he growled. Briggs, his gaze unwavering, replied, "That's something you should never have underestimated." With Keenox defeated, surreal silence fell over the battlefield. The Ecker troops, seeing their commander brought low, began to retreat in disarray, their cohesion shattered. Briggs, weary but resolute, stood tall. "Forward, drive them off our land," he commanded, and the humans, reinvigorated by their victory, surged ahead, pushing the remnants of the alien forces from the field. The fall of Keenox marked the ultimate turning point. Against unimaginable odds, the humans had triumphed. As Briggs surveyed his exhausted yet determined soldiers and the scarred battlefield, he knew this moment would go down in history. They had proven that with courage, strategy, and unity, even the most formidable threats could be overcome. As the last of the Ecker invaders retreated, an uneasy silence fell over the battlefield. The deafening sounds of explosions and cries gave way to a distant echo, as though Earth itself was breathing again after the brutal confrontation. Captain Briggs, still catching his breath, gazed at the horizon. The landscape was ravaged, yet the human spirit remained unbroken. Every surviving soldier bore the scars of battle, etched not only on their bodies but on their souls. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the dust hanging in the air, Briggs gathered his officers to assess the situation. Morales, his face hardened by the fight, approached and murmured, "We did it, but at what cost?" Briggs glanced around, his eyes settling on the weary, grief-stricken faces of his men. "Every life lost carries a weight we'll never forget," he replied softly. "But it's for them that we fought, and for them that we'll continue." The soldiers began tending to the wounded and honoring those who had fallen. Jackson, sitting on a rock with his bloodied uniform, watched the scene unfold around him. His legs still throbbed, but his mind was elsewhere. He looked toward Briggs and Morales, figures who had become living symbols of courage during the fight. "We're capable of so much," he thought, a mix of admiration and pride swelling in his chest. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to fight for something greater than himself. As the survivors worked together to restore the camp, the sky began to clear. Incandescent fragments of Ecker ships still burned as they fell through the atmosphere, a vivid reminder of the triumph they had achieved. The impact of that victory reverberated far beyond the battlefield. In distant space colonies that had watched the struggle unfold, the story of humanity's resistance and courage inspired a renewed sense of hope. For the first time, the universe acknowledged that humanity was not just another vulnerable civilization. They were a force to be reckoned with. Briggs walked among the soldiers, reflecting on the battle's significance. This wasn't just a victory over the Ecker, he thought. It was proof of who we are and what we're capable of. He knew the challenges were far from over. New threats could emerge from the depths of the universe, but humanity now possessed something more powerful than any technology: the certainty of their resilience. "We've shown that the human spirit is unbreakable," he said to Morales, who responded with a quiet nod of agreement. As the sun set once again, the camp reorganized, and the stillness of the night brought a collective moment of introspection. Every soldier knew that the battle had changed their lives forever. For some, like Jackson, it was the beginning of a deeper understanding of their place in the universe. For others, like Briggs, it confirmed a responsibility that went beyond immediate survival. They weren't just defenders of Earth, they were symbols of hope for an uncertain future. News of the victory spread quickly through the space colonies, where humanity began to rally around a renewed effort to protect and explore the cosmos. The Interstellar Council, which had once viewed humans as a minor civilization, now regarded them as strategic allies. The courage and sacrifice demonstrated during the battle opened new pathways for intergalactic partnerships, while making it clear that humanity would not be easily subdued. In his final address to the soldiers before dismissing them to rest, Briggs raised his voice above the quiet. "Today, we proved we're more than survivors. We're fighters. Our determination lies in every life we protect, in every sacrifice we honor." The soldiers responded with applause, a sound that echoed under the stars like a collective vow. They knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would be ready. As the soldiers dispersed, Briggs stepped away to gaze at the star-filled sky. Each distant light now felt closer, more meaningful. He knew the universe still held mysteries and dangers, but also infinite possibilities. Let the universe come, he thought, his heart steady. Earth would not fall, and its people would not surrender. They had claimed their place among the stars with sweat, blood, and courage. And so, under the eternal brilliance of the stars, humanity faced its future with a renewed purpose. The battles they had fought revealed not only their strength, but their essence. Explorers, fighters, and dreamers, ready to chart the cosmos with the unwavering knowledge that as long as a single human stood, the fight for survival and freedom would never end.